You might have 1 week or you could have 1 year until your case interview. You might have one scheduled or you might have just the hope of scheduling one. We are here to help you because there are a lot of people who have absolutely no idea where to start. We have a prep plan that you can use to work through the case interview process, not just to become comfortable with case interviews, but also to nearly guarantee your success. We'll walk you through an early case interview prep plan as well as some advanced tips in this awesome episode. Are you facing a case interview for the first time but have no idea where to start preparing? You are not alone. We get hundreds of emails every month from people who either have a case interview that's just been scheduled and there's a little bit of panic in their tone, or they're thinking about case interviews because they know that they want to apply for consulting and they're not sure where to get started. Well, you are in luck. We've got a great case prep plan that's been used by thousands of people to effectively break into consulting, and we're going to share it with you today. First of all, just a little bit about my personal experience with case interviews. You might relate to this. When I first explored consulting, I heard about this thing called the case interview. And initially, I totally underestimated it. I expected that the case interview was going to be much easier and much more natural because I was traditionally a very good interviewer. But I had a moment in my process when I already had received interviews, when I began to read a book about case interviews, and ultimately when I practiced my first terrifying interview, when I realized this is not like any other interview. So if you're in that moment and you have a case interview scheduled, don't worry. We can help get you there, just like I got there in a really short amount of time. If you're on the flip side of that, where you're thinking about consulting in the future and you want to effectively plan, you don't want to waste time, and you want to make sure that you hit the target when you ultimately get there, well, we've also recommended that this is a case prep plan that you can begin. You'll just have a little bit more time to work through it. So understanding that, we're going to walk through a couple of the key pieces of case prep planning. There are 4 key parts to a case prep plan, and the good news is that many of these things you can do effectively by yourself. The first step is that we've put together a free case prep course for you. In this, we'll tell you everything that you need to know about what a case interview is, how long each piece of the case interview should be, what you should expect in the evaluation, and how to begin to prepare. It's an awesome way for you to start thinking about case interviews and hearing from experts so that you're not wasting your time reading books or hearing from multiple sources. The second piece is to do 10 to 20 market sizing questions. You need to do 2 every day, and you must do these out loud. Market sizing prompts are very simple, like how many ornamental plants exist in the United States, or how many coffee mugs are there. Usually people will look around a room when they're giving these questions, and you can look around a room just to create them. You need to plan a structure, some assumptions, and your calculations. You need to do them out loud, you need to time yourself, and you should do 2 of each per day. When you're doing these questions, it can help to begin to get the juices flowing and the tools that you'll need to be effective in longer case interviews. If you do 2 a day and you do 10 and you're ready, you can move on. If you're not, we'd recommend that you keep going until you complete 20 unique market sizing questions. The third thing you should do is work through 5 to 10 full cases by yourself. Now, you can get cases through our free case of the month, or we have access in our paid subscription through the Case Bank, where we have over 500 cases. If you do 10 full cases, we recommend that you do 1 of each business problem type. We break those down into market sizing, which is the first type, then profitability, market study, and M&A. There are subtypes for each one of those, and if you do 10 in aggregate, you will have covered each one of those. Now, you can also work through our YouTube channel or our Strategy Simplified podcast, and you can co-work with other people who have done cases through the cases that they're getting. That way, you can practice receiving the information verbally, and you can work through your questions out loud when you pause the video or the recording. If you do 10 to 20 cases out loud by yourself, you'll get the systems, the structures, the process, and the timing down. And then you can really begin to focus your casing on content. The fourth and final piece of an effective prep plan is to get together with a partner. Now, of course, the better the partner, the better the feedback. So if you want to work with an expert for management consultant, we would love to help you. But these partners can be anybody from somebody who's going through the process to a person who just joined the firm who effectively did the case interview, to someone who's evaluated case interviews, all the way up to an expert coach. If you're in university, they could be someone in your career service office. And in a pinch, it can be a friend or a family member who's never even heard about cases. You just need someone else on the other side of the question asking to help you get down the surprise factor, the cadence and the pacing of working through a full case from end to end, and then to provide you with some feedback. Now, if you haven't seen, we have a scoring chart that's available to you on Management Consulted. Happy to share it. And we also have some great tools for working through cases. In addition, we have an amazing program called Black Belt, where we can provide you with that first session of feedback and walk with you through 8 or more sessions to help really effectively get you ready for the case interview. We can do that whether you're 1 week or 1 year away from your case interview.
We'll be right back after this quick message. Case Frameworks trip up the most prepared candidates. Join the July 18th Frameworks Intensive for advanced case structuring help. This is a 3-hour Frameworks masterclass where you'll become an expert on the 3 core frameworks, and you'll learn how to start blending frameworks to create your own. It's live teaching plus practical exercises and dedicated Q&A time. You don't want to miss this class. Grab a seat at the link in the show notes for just $100. This is the only Frameworks Intensive of 2023. There are just 50 total seats available. We sell out every year, so jump on this as soon as possible. All right, let's get back to the show.
Now, interestingly, once you've completed some of these early steps in the case interview process, you've done everything that you can on your own, you've utilized free resources, and you've recognized, hey, I'm still not quite ready. There are a bunch of mistakes that you could easily make. First of all, you could passively consume material. This is one of the biggest issues that we see. People go through the early process and they think that what they need is more knowledge. So they go read more books, listen to more cases, work through more case interviews solo on their own without structure, without pressure, and without great feedback. And the issue with this passive process is that it builds a false confidence in you. So we're going to recommend that at this point in the case prep process, once you've done 10 to 20 market sizing questions, once you've done 5 to 10 cases out loud, and once you've done 1 diagnostic case with somebody else, that you do no more reading and no more listening. It's time to break down the case. Second of all, you need to make sure that you're not casing in isolation. A lot of people, because they're uncomfortable with casing in person, it's a naturally uncomfortable experience, will move into a place where they begin to just case by themselves and they repeat the process that worked great in the beginning and they think it's going to get them to where they need to go. We don't want you to waste time or effort at all in this part of the process. And more importantly, we do not want you to build bad habits. The final big mistake that we see over and over and over again is that people aim for quantity over quality. Instead of working through from the 10 to 20 market sizing questions and the 5 to 10 cases, they'll just go from there directly into volume without incorporating feedback, and they'll focus on repetition. Now, this is actually an issue that we had, and honestly, in my own casing process, that's part of what I did. But I actually prepared for my case interviews in 20 cases because after I did the first pieces, I got great feedback and I realized that I had some focus areas that I needed to prepare on. If you focus on the quantity over the quality, what you'll have is good casing baked in. You'll learn your bad habits and you will ingrain them. And I really want to encourage you not to do that because we can get you ready faster, but also better if you follow our advanced case prep tips. First, advanced case prep is all about amazing content. It's important for you to focus on the structure of how you solve a problem, getting you to the right answer, not just the answer itself. If you do case repetitions, what you'll find is that you're focusing on solving the problem by knowing an exposure to industries and an exposure to business problems. But when you walk into the case interview, what you need is a toolkit not to solve every problem you've seen, but any problem you could ever see. There's a huge difference between the two. And so if you focus on breaking down problems into adequate, complicated, but effective, comprehensive structures that are very data-driven, you're going to find that you'll reach the right answer every time instead of relying just on your experience to get you there. Second of all, when you're moving through the case, once you've built the good baseline, you have to begin to use a hypothesis-driven approach. And this is where someone who has business training or business experience has a natural advantage because they're able to tie their hypotheses in from relevant experience that they've seen in the real world or in their coursework. You don't have to have business training or business experience, but you need to begin to train yourself to tell people, I think that the issue is pricing and here's why. And you need to begin to defend your reasoning for that. Now, if you're working on a case interview with your mom, or if you're working on it by yourself, they're not going to be able to give you feedback about the reasonability, the clarity, and the appropriateness of your hypothesis-driven approach. This is really where you need to inject excellent case partners in because it's no longer about the process, but it's about the content of what you're thinking. The third thing is moving from calculations and structure into insights. When you have a structure at the beginning, you need to explain why it supports a hypothesis. When you have a structure for your math, you need to explain why the number matters to the client. We call it second and third level insights. And at this point in the prep process, you should be able to effectively calculate mental math or break down the structure of a problem. And we've got tools to help you do that in the early part of your prep. But when you're moving into this later, more advanced case prep process, what you're going to do is instead of relying on case structure drills, you're going to focus on case structure drills tied to a hypothesis reflected on at the end of a case. You're pulling everything together to make sure that the structure that you're using is tying back to the original purpose of the case. In short, you're showing somebody that you're not just an analyst, but you're an analyst plus. You're not just an associate, but you're an associate plus. You're a potential future partner of the firm that you're applying for. When you go from the baseline of great process through these excellent content periods, there's one more final thing that you have to remember. When you're getting good at casing, good at the experience, good at the understanding, the last and final thing that you have to incorporate into your advanced case prep is some fun. You need to laugh when you come up with an insight. You need to make a joke when you're drawing parallels between a couple of different industries. You need to smile when you're doing the case interviews. One of the challenges that we see with people who do their interviews in isolation, focus on just the good but not the great, or who are very repetitious in how they do cases, is it comes off robotic and flat. And ultimately, a great case interview is not just great structure and great content, but also someone who is alive with enthusiasm for solving the business problem. You can do all of these things without paying for anything. You can find great partners. You can use free resources like the ones that we have. But if you want a more structured, better plan that will get you from where you are, not where someone is, but where you are to where you want to go, we would love for you to join our Black Belt program. It is the most successful program in case interview prep. Our hope is that you will go from an unlikely success story to your absolute best in the case interview process. And we're here to walk with you every step along the way. Black Belt includes all of our digital resources, 8 sessions with coaches, and additional intensives that go along to help you in your journey. We'll help you with everything we talked about today, from the structure and the process all the way through to pro content. And you're going to have a great time walking through the case interview prep process. So whether you have just a few days or whether you have months to prepare, we're here at Management Consulted to help you walk through the case interview process. We hope that you enjoyed this episode and we look forward to working with you. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Strategy Simplified. We would love for you to share it with somebody who you think it would help. And we'd love for you to join us for more content. So make sure that you subscribe to our channel, make sure that you jump onto our email list, and make sure that you follow some of the links that we put in the show notes for additional resources. Thanks again for joining. If you've got any follow-on questions, if you want to become a guest on the podcast or more, you can write us, team@managementconsultant.com.